Yes guys, back with another YouTube video. Today is going to be a video about one of my most recent rent-to-rent success students. When I say recent, I mean literally today. He's collecting the keys to his first rent-to-rent deal. So I wanted to talk about Nahid's journey and how he's managed to get his first rent-to-rent deal, the steps he's taken, and hopefully you can get some value from this. If you're watching this and you're eager to get your first rent-to-rent deal, then this video could be of huge value to you, so make sure you stay tuned to the end. So I started working with Nahid around 6 months ago, and exactly 190 days, so about 10 days over the 6-month period, Nahid is going to pick up the keys to his first rent-to-rent deal. And it's been quite a journey from complete novice in rent-to-rent to getting his first rent-to-rent deal. So a bit of context and background on Nahid. He's a young guy, I think he's early to mid-20s, if that. He currently works as a social media manager for other companies, other brands. So that's how he earns his money, but his goal is to build a business that allows him to work less time and not work to the clock of someone else, right? So he manages other people's social media accounts, but you know, he has deadlines and he has to work to someone else's schedule. And although it's worked out okay for him, he doesn't see that as the business he wants to build over the long term. He wants to get started in property. He's got £4,000 or £5,000 sitting there, so what better way to get started than to start renting people's properties, improving the perceived value of them, and then renting them out for a premium, which is rent to rent, right? So when I first spoke to Nahid, he was very clear on what he wanted to do, build a rent to rent business. He was shopping around, funnily enough, with a few other rent to rent educators in the space. On our first call, I remember him telling me that, which, you know, I'm always completely fine with, because any intelligent person will shop around and do their due diligence on rent-to-rent mentors and educators just to find the right fit for them. So I wouldn't expect anything different from Nahid. So after our first call, a couple of days later, I think he came back to us and said he wants to work with myself, which was great news. And then we got him signed up. He joined the program and started working his way through the course curriculum. We had our first Zoom call the following week, where I just mapped out next steps going forward and the needle moving activities that I think he should be doing to progress as efficiently as possible. So the next sort of 6 weeks went past quite quickly, and Nahid was sending me messages on WhatsApp asking me my opinion on certain properties and what he should be saying, how he should be saying it. And I was basically just filling in the gaps for him and redirecting him back to the program, back to the curriculum. We've been doing this for 4 years now, so the curriculum is really dialed in. You know, there's not many questions that anyone could have, or a resource that anyone would need, that isn't already in the program, because as I said, we've been doing it a while now. So we study our students and we get feedback from them, and then we add whatever may be missing from the program to improve it. So we've been doing that process for 4 years now. So as you can imagine, the curriculum is pretty dialed in now. So first 6 weeks went past. I wouldn't say slow, but steady progress was made. Nahid started to go on a few viewings. We was looking at some properties on open rent, and initially Nahid was really determined to get a service accommodation property. That's what he had in his mind, and he wanted to work with apartments. So that's what we were looking at initially, but as he started to understand rent to rent in its entirety, and after some mentoring from me, he realized that rent to rent HMO is also a very good opportunity too. And I think the first sort of 6 to 8 weeks, Nahid was just getting used to the curriculum, and I think he'd tell you this himself, you know, he probably was a little bit distracted. Maybe he was busy running his social media management whilst trying to do outreach for rent to rent, and there's only a limited amount of time in the day. So there was a period within that first sort of 2 months where he stopped booking in his calls with me every week, and maybe he got slightly distracted. But since those first 2 months passed, he really stepped things up, and I noticed a change in his behavior. You know, he started to message me a lot more often. He started to book in his calls, and he was sending me potential deals more often. And the next deal that we looked at was a 6-bedroom all ensuite HMO in Blackpool, which looked great. In fact, it wasn't a licensed HMO, but it was 6 rooms all split into ensuite rooms, and it was unlicensed. But we were thinking about using it as a service accommodation and renting it out on booking.com and Airbnb. It was not far from the sea, from the beach, so we thought it could definitely work. But after a lot of deliberating, and we went over the numbers together, with Nahid's budget being limited as well, we just felt like a six bed might be a bit of a big commitment to start with for his first one. So after around a week of going back and forth doing the numbers, we decided to not go ahead with that 6-bed. So then the next property that Nahid looked at was a 10-bedroom HMO, even bigger than the 6-bed. This wasn't in the best condition. He got this lead from the direct to landlord letters that we use inside our program. So leads were starting to pick up, and the next property that he was considering was a 10-bed. 10 beds can be great, but they can also be a lot of work as well. But the landlord wanted, I think, £4,000 a month originally. We managed to negotiate him down to 2,800. There were some tenants already in the property, so the deal was to maybe take on half of the building, and then if he'd done a good job and things went well, then he would take on the other half. So altogether it was actually a 20-bed unit, but half was filled with tenants and the other half was empty. Now again, we done the numbers, we made some negotiations with the landlord, but again, after a lot of deliberation over the course of a week, myself and Nahid decided that it might be a bit too much for him to take on for his first deal. Maybe if he had a few deals under his belt, it would have been perfect, but we decided that for his first one, let's look at something smaller and build pragmatically from there. And at this point, you know, he's, I would say, frustrated, but also I had to remind him that he's done so well, because he's gone from complete novice to turning down deals, which is amazing progress considering he had no idea how rent to rent worked 6 months or 4 or 5 months prior. So You know, the fact that he was now choosing which property or landlord to go ahead and work with was an accomplishment in itself, you know. A few days ago he messaged me saying he's got an apartment that he's viewed, the landlord's keen, wants to work with him. It's in Manchester. It suits him for exactly what he wants, you know, his first one, not too much financial outlay initially. I think he's going to be paying around £1,000 a month in rent. He's going to have to spend a couple grand on furniture. So altogether the deal's going to cost him around maybe three grand. Yeah, he's confident, I'm confident. We've done the numbers, we've looked at the area, we've got other students doing really well in that area from apartments, doing service accommodation. So there's no reason why it can't work well for Nahid too. And today he messaged me saying he's going to collect the keys, which is amazing. You know, this is our 10th success story of the year. I don't see many other rent-to-rent trainers getting this many success stories, especially this year. So it just goes to show that our strategies are current and they work. He's going to spend the next week or so furnishing and staging the property, and then he's going to get it online, get it advertised. I presume he's going to pay the landlord his first month's rent today, and hopefully we'll get Nahid on the podcast on YouTube soon, so he can tell you the story himself. But I just wanted to share with you what he's done and how it's worked for him. All he's done is join the program, follow our blueprint, copy everything that I do day in, day out, copy our marketing techniques. He's also learned how to communicate the service consistently. Most of the work he did was up front in the first few months, and at this point he's now repeating tasks that are becoming quite easy to him. He understands how to speak to landlords, what to say, how to say it. He has a few other deals that are potentially being offered to him from landlords as well, and he should be making around £750 to £1,000 a month depending on how many bookings he gets. So another great story. If you're watching this and you're on the fence about rent to rent, hopefully this can inspire you to start your journey. There's going to be more deals coming Nahid's way. This is just the first of many. I'm very proud of the progress he's made. Young, ambitious guy. I was speaking to him when I was away in Antigua recently. When I was on the beach, he's messaging me. Just a joy to work with, you know, always asking questions, always keen to learn. And he's listened to everything that I've asked him to do, and he's implemented it. If you're watching this and you want me to help you get your first rent to rent deal, then I'll put a link in the video description below. Click the link, book in a call. On that call we'll have a chat, get to know each other and see if we're a good fit to work together. If not, that's fine too. Keep watching the YouTube videos, keep getting inspired by my success students, and as always guys, I'll see you on the next one.